Well, welcome to the 2023 Myers Lecture Series, sponsored by Joyce Myers, my wife, and myself, Jeff. And we're welcoming our 15th lecturer this year. And our lecturer this year is Dr. Edward Bennett. And we're going to learn a little bit more about him here as we have a conversation with him. We welcome you, and delighted to have you with us this year. So it's a privilege to have you with us, and we welcome you to the lecture series. And as we talked on the phone the other night, you join an esteemed group of people and add to that esteemment, if you will. And I think we're just so happy to have you here with us today. So welcome. So as I was reviewing your CV, I learned that there were many significant achievements. Some I was aware of, some I wasn't aware of, and so it was wonderful to review that. I want to review those for our audience so that they know a little bit more about you. Graduated from Indiana University, another Big Ten school, we like that here, and received your BA, your OD, and then a Master's of Science in Education, which is unique within our profession. Not everybody gets one of those. You're now a Professor Emeritus from the University of Missouri at St. Louis at their College of Optometry. First love in optometry is obviously contact lenses, we know that, and almost 90 studies that you've been involved in, 200 publications, including 14 texts, about 500 programs scientifically and continuing educationally, internationally, not just locally. And that's awesome. In terms of service, you're Professor Emeritus at UMSL, College of Optometry, President and Executive Director of the Astronomical Lens Institute, Clinical Features Editor for Contact Lens Spectrum, Past Chair of the American Optometric Association Contact Lens and Cornea Section, Diplomate and Past Chair of the Cornea Contact Lens and Refractive Technology Section of the American Academy of Optometry, past chair of the Association of Optometric Contact Lens Educators, past president of the MDOD Contact Lens Foundation of St. Louis, on a variety of editorial boards for the journals, and then interestingly a bit of visiting professor at 2 international schools, both in Beijing and Glasgow, expanding in the understanding of optometry and contact lenses onto 2 additional continents. I'm a little worn out already, but we'll take a deep breath and continue on here. All that service and all those kinds of achievements certainly end up being recognized sooner or later. And so you've been fortunate to receive a wide variety of recognitions. Bob Ketting Memorial Award from the St. Louis Optometric Society. You were the 2nd annual Distinguished Alumni Award winner from Indiana University School of Optometry. One of the 50 most influential optometrists in America by Optometric Management. One of the 30 most influential optometrists in contact lenses in the last 30 years by Contact Lens Spectrum. The CLMA has presented the Joseph Dallas Award and the Leonardo da Vinci Award to you. The Distinguished Service Award from GPLI. The Achievement Award, the Frank Fontana Award, and the Legends Award from the AOA Contact Lens and Cornea Section. The Dr. Leonard Braunstein Memorial Award, Global Specialty Lens Symposium Award of Excellence, and the annual Kevin Toohey Memorial Lecture Award from CLSA. The Award for Distinguished Research on the Cornea and Contact Lenses from the University of Houston College of Optometry. The Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Teaching from UMSL. The Michael G. Harris Award for Excellence in Optometric Education from the American Optometric Foundation. The Ambassador Award from the National Keratoconus Foundation. A Fellow of the Scleral Lens Education Society, Distinguished Fellow in the National Academies of Practice. We enjoyed a wonderful weekend in Philadelphia a few years back. And then last year we inducted into the National Optometry Hall of Fame, and you were an inaugural member of the Academy, American Academy of Optometry Hall of Fame that year as well. As I told you on the phone, I thought maybe some of these were made up because I didn't recognize some of them, and they were so lengthy, but I checked them all out, and they're legit, so I'm delighted about that. And what a wonderful collection of recognitions from your colleagues over the course of your career. So it's a pretty impressive series of accomplishments, achievements, recognitions, but we really want to know more. We want to know more about what makes Ed Bennett tick, and some of the backstory about you and how you got to where you are and what you've done and that kind of stuff. So to open that up, why in the world optometry? What drew you to optometry, and why did you choose that as a career? And why Indiana University?
Oh, very good question. And the first comment I'll make is thank you for such a nice introduction, Dr. Myers, and thanks for sponsoring this award. Like you said, looking back to the people who have been honored prior, it's really a privilege to receive this.
Well, it's our privilege to honor you, so thank you so much.
Thank you. me getting an optometry is just a story of, the mediocrity, mediocre person making, well, I had trouble getting into optometry school. I majored, as you mentioned, I ended up with a master's also in educational psychology, and that was, I majored in psychology, probably not the best major, although I'm glad I did it. I minored in fraternity, and that might have been the problem that kept me from getting in the first year I applied.
Are you sure it was a minor, or was it a major?
I know. So I fortunately, I got it. Well, and to be honest, my next year I reapplied, my senior year, and I didn't hear. And I've told this story numerous times, but I got my rejection letter on my birthday. And I don't remember what it said, but to me it said, "Dear Ed, happy birthday, you're never going to be an optometrist." So I got lucky and was able to get an interview with the head of admissions at IU, and I'm from Terre Haute, so it's the law to go to Indiana University. So I, was grilled for 2 hours, and this was 2 weeks before school began. And it was a very introverted vision researcher who gave me my career. Because at the end of 2 years, he goes, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, my dad wants me to go." He owned a beer distributorship. And I had worked for him for 7 years, and he wanted me to go into that. I didn't, I like the product, don't get me wrong, but that just wasn't the career for me. And so I said, I really don't know what I'll do if I can't be an optometrist. And he looked up and said, "You will be. Somebody dropped out today." And I filled this spot, and several years later, when I was on the faculty at IU, we were having a glass of wine together at the academy, and that's when he told me he got in trouble with the dean for bumping me ahead of people on the honor list. So I was just really, really fortunate.
So a little serendipity there.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Good. Who was that?
Dr. Ron Everson.
Okay.
And guess who got the first copy of my first book?
That's great. That's great. Well, and if it wasn't for optometry, what would it have been? Would it have been the beer distributorship? Would it have been something else?
I was ready to go out to California and just
Hang out?
hang out. Yeah, that's what I told him, and so he really saved my career in that regard, and I was just really been blessed ever since.
That's good. So within optometry, colleagues often will choose from a wide variety of specialties or subspecialties or just interests. And obviously, we know that you've built an entire career on contact lenses. What is it about contact lenses that drew you to that, or why contact lenses? Why did that become your special area of passion and interest?
Interestingly enough, when I went into school, being someone who knew I was going to have to work hard to get through school, I was in my third year performing average work, and our contact lens professor was going through his hard lens design philosophy, and bells went off. It was truly an aha moment, and so I really felt like this is wonderful, and I really got hooked on contact lenses. And at that same time, the school was establishing a contact lens research center or clinic for fourth years as an externship site. So just so happened my contact lens instructor was also in charge of externships. So I went up to him and I said, "Well, Dr. Schick, I'd love to go into that contact lens research clinic." And it was established by Dr. Irvin Borish. And he looked at me and he said, "Ed, you have to be in the top 20% of your class." And of course, you need like a telescope to see those people. So, but he knew how much I liked contact lenses, and he bumped somebody. Really? And that's how I got into that clinic. And when I got into that clinic, right away, I got to be involved in 5 FDA clinicals. And it was just life-changing for me. I loved, it's one of those where you go home and you're reading articles and you're just hooked. So I was very, very fortunate, and that led to a faculty position at IU and everything good that's happened in my life, really.
And I think I would speak for the majority of private practitioners out there. While we kind of understand doing gas perms, and now sclerals have brought many of those gas permeable ideas back to the forefront, most of us shy away from it like anything. And so we're grateful to the folks like you that have kind of forged the road, so to speak, or made the road easier for us if we want to do those things and given us all sorts of tools and tips on how to do those things. So thank you for that. So.
It's kind of you to say. I have been a Hardwinds wearer since I was 13 years old, so I came into it with a real interest, and what perfect timing. One of the FDA clinicals we did was on a lens called the Polycon lens. It was one of the first ones to get FDA approved, and to see everybody who was wearing hard lenses, to see their edema go away underneath a gas permeable lens was magical, and it was so, you just really get hooked on it. And then how fortunate are you then to be able to be in a position that you can do clinical research in that area?
Well, here at the Myers Lecture, we're all about facts and truth, okay? So we might kid a little bit, we might tell stories, but we like to know the truth. So, so we need your help a little bit in discerning truth in a story that's being circulated in this part of the Midwest. And so is it true that you've learned everything from Ohio State alum Tom Quinn? Is that true or not?
Yeah, I wonder where that came from. Yeah, he really, whatever he does, I just copy it.
We'll pass that along.
Tom is, I'm just really blessed to have that friendship, and he's been such a, over the years, somebody who's been really one of those people that I have a lot of respect for, and I think he's been a good leader, he's been a good friend, been a good mentor. There are a few of those people here as well, so I've been fortunate in that regard.
Good. That's good. So what really motivates you? We know you're passionate about contact lenses, but is there something even underlying that motivates you and that you're passionate about?
Well, I think in recent years it's been leadership. I think when you get to be a certain age, you've been in a position where you've watched a lot of leaders, and you really learn from that. And I think once I got back involved with the American Academy of Optometry, and we really have a very ambitious leadership program, leadership series, and now a leadership community that now the committee chairmanship, and I got heavily involved in that. It's been passed over to Jenny Bode, who will do a great job. But we really want to provide, everybody is a leader. We want to feel like they should have the training. And if you look around at most of the people in leadership positions, that their people skills could be better, the decisions they make could be better, and it impacts people's lives. So certainly within optometry, that's my primary goals today. Is I just love to see everybody become a leader. I think Ohio State's had the premier leader, I think, in Carla Zadnik, but I think there's a lot of good emerging leaders out there, and with training, they can be very, very good.
Well, and sometimes leadership in the past, who's going to be the leader, so to speak, ends up being the last person to step back, right? And so having folks who, and it's partially because they don't feel equipped, so being able to be equipped and understand how to make things happen and do those things, I think empowers people to be leaders and feel comfortable in those roles.
Well, you would understand it better than about anybody. With all the leadership roles you've had within optometry, within your community, it's something that we need to clone. We need people out there who will embrace leadership positions and will be good role models.
Yeah, it's good for the profession and everybody. Who were the early influencers? Who were the early mentors in your life and in your career?
I've been, again, very fortunate in that regard. I mentioned Dr. Borish. He was, in my life, not only by virtue of the fact that I was able to have a faculty go into the research clinic and be involved in his FDA clinicals, but also that he was, in addition, he was the, trying to think of the term, the director of clinics at IU when I was there. So he decided to establish, they didn't have a contact lens clinic. They had a research clinic, but they didn't have a clinic. You saw contact lens patients within the clinic. So he established one and put me in charge of it, and he said, he gave me a lesson I've never forgotten. He said, Ed, you've got a long rope, don't choke on it. I'll let you do anything you want to do. And whether it's been people that I've worked with, Benita Henry and some of the people I've worked with, I've had the same approach. If you go give people, let them shine. And so he did that for me, and then he did one more very special thing for me. Right about the time I left Indiana to go to UMSL, I had an idea to write a book. And it got rejected by everybody. You know, I still have a letter that said, we don't think it's a good topic, and who's ever heard of Ed Bennett? So whenever I feel like my head's getting big at all I have to do is read that letter. And so I finally went to Dr. Borish and I said, would you write a chapter for this book? He said, sure, Ed. He wrote it, put it on the table of contents, submitted it to his publisher, which he had the biggest selling book in optometry at that time, and it got accepted.
Amazing how those things work, isn't it?
Oh. Or we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go.
So he was one. I think there have been several people I think out in the profession that I've worked with that I think have had an impact. I go back, you know, certainly people like Tom Quinn, people here like Carla Zadnick or Jeff Wallin, but there's been people I think who I've met who've been very kind to me and allowed me to have opportunities that I think I've been very, very appreciative. I had a dean at UMSL, Larry Davis, that was very good to me. And but I think it all starts with Dr. Borish. I think he would be the one that would be the primary.
Were there mentors even before you came to optometry?
Not really that I can think of. Friends who served as good mentors, I think. I really was fortunate that I had, when I thought about optometry, you know, it was actually a close friend of mine that said, you know, I knew nothing about optometry, but you know, optometry seems to be like a good profession. You ought to look into it. And I think about, ultimately I became assistant dean of student services, so I was interviewing everybody. And I always remember Dr. Everson, you know, I don't judge a book by its cover, but I also believe that, you know, these people knew a lot more about optometry than I did when I went in. So having, you know, a good friend say, why don't you go in this direction was wonderful.
Well, everybody today knows way more about everything than we knew when we went to school, right? I mean, that's just a fact. So you did. Let's talk about that move to UMSL. So you made a move fairly early in your career to UMSL, University of Missouri in St. Louis, new college of optometry. Hadn't even graduated its first class yet. So tell me about that decision. Why did you make? How and why did you make a decision to go to an unknown, if you will, product that school versus someplace else?
Well, our dean at IU, Dean Gordon Heath, I had approached him because I had been there a couple of years, and the class after mine had 3 individuals who had gone out and done residencies and come back to IU's faculty with a higher salary than I was getting. So I go to Dean Heath and I said, you know, what do I need to do? You know, I'm working on a master's, but, you know, what do I need to do? And he goes, well, Ed, you need to leave.
That's always encouraging.
Yeah. The train leaves tomorrow. No, he basically said it would be good for you if you could leave and then come back, and that's exactly what my plan was. And the funny thing is, Dr. Borish had come to me and said, well, you know, Ed, they asked me about you at UMSL, and I told them you'd be good, so you got the job. I didn't get the job.
Oh,
no, I didn't. They fortunately had some really nice faculty who said, well, we should hire him for a second position. So I actually got a second position in contact lenses there, and I just thought it would be temporary. And my wife's an optometrist, a very good one. She actually, there was a study. That one of the studies I did when I was a 4th-year student, FDA clinical, and the tuition, or the grants paid my entire tuition that year. A soft lens company, if you can believe that. And it was an awful lens. It was soft toric, poor comfort, discomfort, poor vision.
That product.
No, we won't. We won't. Did get FDA approved. Yeah.
So it made it to market, but we won't talk about it.
No, we won't talk about it. Yeah. Poor vision, discomfort, and edema were the 3 things I remember. But But the three positive
Perfect
things,
choice, right?
yeah, three positive things about it is it paid my tuition for that year. I met my research mentor. Dr. Alan Tomlinson was working for the company at that time, and then he came to IU on the faculty while I was there, and you were talking about mentors. I knew there was something I was forgetting. You know, he was really my research mentor, and then when I was in St. Louis, Dr. Rex Gormley was the individual who really mentored me when I was there. But yeah, so the third benefit, well, one of my subjects was a second-year student who I thought was really nice, so I married her.
There you go.
And she ended up just retiring from private. She owned a private practice up until this past year. So when we went to St. Louis, I thought I'd be coming back to IU, but it would have been difficult with her for the family reasons to do that. And so we did the next best thing. We got IU's dean to come to UMSL, Dr. Jack Bennett. And he was, for the time he was there, just an absolutely tremendous person and role.
That's good. That's good. So, tell us a little bit about the Gas Permeable Lens Institute. How did that come about a little bit, and your role, and what has that done, and how does it operate, that kind of thing?
Well, it's been the greatest professional decision I've ever made. It's been a godsend for me. The funny story about it is that it was established in 1984, and I was at a Paragon Optical Clinical Investigators meeting, and it was at dinner, and Frank Montana, who was a prominent optometrist in St. Louis, was whispering to everybody else at the dinner table but me about something about a research institute. And so I thought, I was feeling left out, what about me? And that's really what became the GPLI, and they did ask me to be in charge of workshops, so I did workshops for a couple of years. And then they had their first executive director buying a lab, so that was a conflict of interest, and the GPLI had come under the umbrella of the Contact Lens Manufacturers Association, so you couldn't own a lab. So I was out in Berkeley doing a bunch of educational videos, fluorescein patterns and so forth for the GPLI, and I was with Carl Moore, really noted, renowned manufacturer who was president of the CLMA, and Dr. Bob Mandel, who wrote the greatest book ever written, in seminal research. So I was in heaven. So Carl's taken me to the airport after we're done, and he goes, "Ed, we'd like you to become director of the GPLI." And I said, "That's, I couldn't do that. That's too much." He said, "Ed, let me make this clear. If you don't accept it, I'm going to have to drop you off at the side of the road. You're going to have to find a way to get to the airport." So I took the job, and it's just been, it's all about education, educating students, residents, and practitioners with hopefully innovative programs and resources that emphasize GP lenses. We have 3 advisory board members who are right here, in Jeff Wallin, Jenny Vogt, and Tom Quinn. And we really are, just really been able to build. Tom is the associate director now, and it's just been the joy of my life, really.
Well, I was interested to look on the website, and of the 13 webinars you've had this year, I could identify at least 5 of the webinar people, the speakers, were Ohio State folks. So,
yeah.
So we like that, we're happy.
Well,
share those folks with you.
Well, Ohio State's had a great contact lens program, all along, and then they established that 2-year, fellow master's degree, and look at the people who've come out of that.
Pretty strong group of people. So, now somebody mentioned something about some acting ability or some skits that go on at GPLI. You want to expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, I've been known to dress up as any form of male or female, just to get the point home. And I've done a lot with the students. It's all about education. And
Confession's okay, and we were happy to listen to confession too. So
yeah, I know. Yeah, I've dressed up as when you're doing the contact lens history lecture, you have to dress up as Leonardo da Vinci. So it's been a lot of fun through the years. More recently, in my wife's retirement ceremony, I dressed up as her. Seeing a patient on a normal. I think I had a name tag made up that said, "I'm Dr. Gene Bennett, and you're not." And it went downhill from there.
Oh,
but-
okay. Well, that's good. So, well, and sometimes skits help to make the point, right? And make it in a way that is more interesting and more engaging than just a lecture is. So.
Education.
It is, it can be. So tell us a little bit about Ed Bennett when he's not an optometrist or when not in an optometry venue. Who is that Ed Bennett? What areas of life does he get involved in and do? You mentioned your wife Jean, other family, anything like that?
Yeah, we've been really blessed. We have 3 children and nobody in optometry. One who started briefly, but none in optometry. We have 2 engineers. One is my younger boy Ashley has a band, and he still plays soccer in his 30s, club soccer, and on the side he's a patent attorney for the University of Colorado. He
In a band,
yeah,
plays soccer, has a patent attorney.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
I know he's got a music studio built in his house. He spends more time down there. I think. Keep your day job, Josh. My older boy is an engineer in St. Louis, and my daughter is a nurse. She's now in Spokane, Washington, as a travel nurse. And you know, I try to play golf, and the key word is try. Yeah, yeah.
many of us like
Yeah, yeah. Someday I'll be able to do that. But that's been, you know, we have a residence down in Florida as well as St. Louis, and we love it down there. We've made a million friends, and life has been really good to us, I think.
That's good. That's good. So what would you tell somebody that's still in optometry school or very early in their career, who looks at your career and says, man, I would aspire to be like Ed Bennett, you know? What would you tell them, you know, at this point to kind of inspire them, if you will, to have that kind of career or, you know, follow your footsteps, so to speak?
Well, the first comment would be obvious, is if I can do it, you can do it. You know, there's no doubt about it. You do have to put forth effort.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be really good to identify some potential mentors.
Mm-hmm.
And the wonderful thing about optometry, and particularly in the contact lens profession, is they never say no.
Mm-hmm.
When I come visit their office, oh yeah, I'll come and visit. When I was Zooming, of course. So identify those people. They'll end up writing letters for you. They'll end up helping you. And then, you know, get involved in the academy. I think that's just a real key area if you're really wanting to advance in the profession. And I think those areas, if you want to write, you know, identify those mentors, and they will help you. If there's areas that you're interested in, look and see who's written. They'll help get, and they'll remember you.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise in speaking, you know, identify those people that you are speaking areas that you're interested in, both locally and nationally. They'll serve as your mentors, and then again pursue the tracks within the academy. And I think if you do that, you'll do very well.
That's good. I remember as a third year going into my 4th year, my wife and I traveled through St. Louis, and I just made cold calls. I didn't show up cold, but I called ahead to both Bob Ketty and Rex Morley's offices and said, I'm a student at Ohio State, just kind of going through, do you mind if I just stop and visit with you? They were both, you know, gracious as could be, you know, to come on in and follow and do whatever I wanted to do in terms of observing them and that kind of thing. So they were very forthcoming with their generosity and that kind of thing. So
I wouldn't doubt that a bit, knowing them, and particularly again the impact that Rex had on my life. For one other, I almost ended up here.
oh, you didn't tell that part of the story.
No, I didn't.
Well, do tell.
I will. No, we had, when I was in my first year in the faculty at IU, I had 3 meetings that fall that Joe Barr was at. And Joe is one of the great mentors in our profession. Joe said, come out to Ohio State, look at our 2-year program. And so I did. And that's where I met Tom Quinn. He was his first year in the program, never forgot it. And the 2 reasons I didn't pursue it is, one, because you're kind of already involved with IU and liked it. And 2 was, what if I got rejected? I can't stand rejection. You know? So.
If Joe was asking you to do it, I bet he might have helped make that happen.
Yeah.
I can't speak for him.
No,
He may have,
he's an awesome person, that's for sure.
he is. We love him here, and he's a great guy. Great guy. So your career has seen you as a faculty member, a recognized leader in organized volunteer optometry inspiring colleagues like Dr. Jeff Pauline to lead, international presenter and author, teacher. What do you point to as your greatest contribution at this point in time to the profession? Is it GPLI? Is it something else? What do you see as your key gift or most lasting, meaningful, significant achievement?
That's a great question, Jeff.
Well, thank you.
I don't know. That's a hard one for me to answer. It might be GPLI. That might be where it would be. It certainly has been an area that I love being involved with and love to see progress, and so that would likely be my answer. Would be.
Yeah. Any other areas you could see and sometimes they're hidden areas. There are things that maybe as a director of student services you ended up counseling students. I don't know.
I think one of the areas that really is important when you're working with students is empathy, and that's really, I think, hopefully a strong point. Really try to, a lot of students over the years I've had to give them the bad news, and I always worried about that, always worried about them. And fortunately, we never had anything serious happen. I think that we're really proud of the people we were able to admit, because our school isn't Ohio State, especially back in the 90s and the decade after that. We're better today. I'm proud of Huntsville today, but Ohio State is likely the #1 optometry school in the country, and it's because of clinic and research, how they're premier in both of them. Huntsville's not a research school, but I feel like they've built a good clinical program. But I think my goal is to try to capture students that would go to schools with nicer facilities that might have programs that would be more enticing, and that I was proud of the fact at least we were able to semi-compete on that nature, and I don't know, maybe one or two of the textbooks, but I don't know. I don't know.
It's hard to tell what the legacy will be, right?
No,
when you're in the midst of it all, it's just doing the best you can.
I don't have the intelligence that a lot of people have, so you just have to kind of work harder and hope that things work out okay. So,
well, it's interesting. Is it interesting? As director of student services, you would have had an opportunity to make somebody's day, not only their day but their life. When you send them a letter that says you're part of the family.
Yeah.
Right. But what a tough thing to do to say you're not part of the family anymore, right?
Right.
That would be a very difficult thing, life-changing experiences. There you go. So if you could redo something in your life, what would it be?
Again, I think I honestly, I would have said many years ago that I would have gone back to IU, because it was the toughest decision I ever made, was to tell Dean Jack Bennett no. And I think for a while after that, I just felt like, why am I, Huntsville wasn't doing real well at that time, and why am I here? And I had my professional partner, Benita Henry, was there, and that was probably a good reason to stay. My family was a very good reason, but I think I wish someone would have told me, when you make a decision, you've made the decision. You don't look back. Nobody ever told me that. It took me a while to understand that, but ultimately I realized, yeah, it was the right decision. And with that said, I wouldn't change anything. I've been very blessed.
Is there anything you wish you had done less of in your life?
Oh, I think you can always say you wish you would have. I did a lot of trips where I would never see wherever I was at, so I could come back with the kids' games and all that. But I still think there might be, you can never say that your priorities should be anything other than with your children. So I look back, there might have been a few things that maybe I could have spent more time with them. I'm proud of them, but I think that that if there would be, that would be it. But overall, like I said, really no major regrets at all.
Anything you wish you had done more of?
Gosh, I wish I would have stuck at golf a little more when I was. I gave it up when I got real busy in practice, and now I'm paying the price. And people are worried about me that they'll get hit. But I think that, no, I tried to be as balanced as I possibly could, and I don't think there's anything different or more that I could have done. I just wouldn't change anything.
That's good. That's good. So I've completed my questions for you. We've got a few folks here in our studio audience. There aren't many, but there's a few who may have questions for you. So we'll invite them to ask any questions if you're up to that.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So questions from our folks? Probably better in the back corner. I'm going to guess there's something.
So Ed, tell us a little bit about your time in the section on the cornea contact lenses of the American Academy of Optometry. You were section chair, and I know there were some magical years in there with some pretty committed magical, not should be committed, but committed magical people. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, are you talking about the positive or maybe?
Mostly positive, yeah.
Yeah. Again, I was very fortunate in that regard, in the sense that when I had my orals for the diplomate, I had a gentleman who was very controversial. And I think I was, fortunately I think of all the people I've dealt with as diplomates, probably the only one.
I think we may have had the same person.
I think we did.
Uh-huh.
And so, but I got my diplomate anyway, and I think from that point on, that's been one of the greatest pleasures of my life, was working in, being involved in the section. And I love the people. I was just telling Jenny Boat about it since she got her diplomate. It's really a family. And when I got, my diplomate class had 5 future chairs of the section. 5 in a row, and that doesn't count Jan Bergensen. So we had a really special, it does count Joe Barr. We had a very special group. So when I had aspired and got into leadership and went up to leadership, I had people around me like Glenda Secor. And well, you were chair when I was just in the early stages when I was. We had you and Peter Brzezinski, Stan Yamani, what great role models that was. And then when I got up there with Glenda Secor, and then working with me were people like Loretta, Shaka Flynn, Doug Winoit, Clark Newman. How fortunate was I? And those were fun times. We got a lot accomplished. And when you have good people and people that work together as a team, there's really, one of the great decisions in my life was to become a diplomate. And I would encourage anybody to do that who's thinking about it. It's the greatest group of people and a great learning experience. Life is learning. If you're going to optometry and you don't want to continue to learn, then don't go into optometry. And the academy is where that's at. And particularly if you have an interest in cornea contact lenses, that the section is just a wonderful place to be.
And your career is remarkable in it that you've really bridged the organizations. So from GPLI to the section on contact lenses and cornea of the AOA, to the section from the Academy, to industry interactions. I just find that remarkable. Can you comment a little bit on how you navigated all those waters? Because I think others in the field have kind of gone down a one road path. And yet you're sort of ecumenical in that regard in the area of cornea contact lenses. So tell me a little more as you reflect. How'd you do that, and what do you think that's meant both for your own career as well as for the profession?
Well, that's very kind of you to say first. I very fortunate, and I think it was a learning process, over time. I was involved in the Academy section before I got involved in the AOA section, and that being involved in the Academy section and leadership helped me become better at working with people. And I needed that with AOA, because AOA was much different. It's just, you're working with industry, or it's more of a political slant. Jeff Wallin has worn both those hats. It's not the easiest in the world, but it helped me. And then I kind of learned better about how working with industry. With GPLI, it was always kind of bridging that we have different labs, different material manufacturers. They're kind of looking at me in terms of making sure nobody's slided. This company or this material manufacturer isn't slided versus the other. So you learn, you work at it, trying to work with the different industries to see what they're most interested in, and a lot of it's communication. It's communicating with them to see if what we're doing is right, is there anything else we can do, but at the same time trying to make sure that it won't be offensive to somebody else. And it's a hard bridge, you know, sometimes to cross, but time and just working in those positions have all been helpful.
Other questions? Folk, do you have any questions?
Well, Ed, I do have a question about where do you think that GP lenses are going to go? Do you think that everyone's going to know that Ed Bennett was the champion, and have you left a legacy with Tom Quinn, or what's going to happen, you know, in the future?
Well, that's a question I'll be addressing soon, I think, in a debate. But it's really they're here to stay. We've been so, and thanks for the question, Jane. We've been so blessed that scleral lenses came along. We've been so blessed with myopia, and we have two of the most famous myopia researchers in the room. But and you're following in their footsteps. But orthokeratology has ridden that wave in that regard. So we know, and we've seen benefits in lens designs that have been larger, move less, and are more comfortable initially. So GPs are here to stay, and anybody who says they aren't is a fool. No, but it fits kind of a niche, but a very important niche, and in many cases a life-changing niche.
I agree.
Any other questions from the folks in our audience? Very good. Well, Ed, again, thank you. Congratulations on being the 15th Myers Lecturer. We're so glad to have you. We look forward to your lecture later this afternoon, and just delighted to have you with us.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Dr. Myers. It's truly a privilege.
We're